Case 1. The cockatoo that helped solve a murder. Imagine this. It's a peaceful evening in 2001, and Jane Gill, a 63-year-old retired schoolteacher, is enjoying the quiet of her suburban California home. Known for her warmth and love of animals, Jane lived with her closest companion, a brilliant snow-white cockatoo named Bird. Jane and Bird were inseparable. The cockatoo was no ordinary pet. Bird had an uncanny ability to mimic human speech, even capturing the exact tones and emotions of people around him. But one evening, the peaceful home turned into a scene of horror. Jane's neighbor, concerned about the lights still being on late into the night, entered her home the next morning to find a gruesome discovery. Jane's lifeless body lay sprawled in the living room, with clear signs of a struggle. Her furniture was overturned, and glass shards from a broken coffee table littered the floor. The signs pointed to a violent home invasion that had ended in Jane's murder. The police were called, and the investigation began. At first, the case was a frustrating puzzle. Jane lived a quiet life, and no one in the neighborhood had seen or heard anything unusual, at least no one human. But perched in the corner of the living room was Bird, her cockatoo, flapping his wings erratically and screeching in an almost desperate tone. Investigators barely noticed the bird at first, chalking up its behavior to confusion from the commotion. But then something chilling happened. Bird squawked out a phrase, loud and clear. "Don't do it! No! Stop!" The room fell silent. Detectives exchanged glances. Was this bird repeating what it had heard during the crime? The cockatoo's cries became even more startling. As officers observed Bird over the next hour, the phrases he repeated were eerily consistent. "No! Stop!" He yelled again, his tone mimicking that of someone in panic or fear. This led investigators to speculate that Bird had witnessed Jane's murder and was now vocalizing her final moments. Skeptical but intrigued, they decided to treat Bird as an unusual kind of witness. However, police knew they couldn't rely solely on the bird's words in court. They needed concrete evidence to back up their theory. A forensic team scoured the crime scene, meticulously collecting evidence. They discovered that Jane had fought back against her attacker. There were defensive wounds on her arms, and under her fingernails, they found traces of skin and blood. This small but critical clue was sent to the lab for DNA analysis. While waiting for lab results, investigators continued piecing together Jane's life to identify any potential suspects. She had no enemies, but neighbors recalled seeing a man lingering around the area just days before her death. He was described as scruffy, nervous, and out of place in the otherwise quiet neighborhood. One neighbor remembered his face well enough to provide a description, which was used to create a sketch. It was a long shot, but it gave police something to work with. Meanwhile, Bird's behavior remained consistent. Each day, the cockatoo would repeat the same alarming phrases, as though he were stuck in a loop of the traumatic event. To corroborate the bird's potential role as a witness, police brought in an animal behavior expert. The expert confirmed that cockatoos are highly intelligent and capable of mimicking not only words, but also the tone and emotional context in which they were spoken. This meant Bird wasn't just reciting random words. He was potentially reenacting a moment of distress he had witnessed firsthand. A breakthrough came when the DNA results from the crime scene arrived. The sample matched a man named Daniel Torres, who had a long history of burglary and assault in the area. Torres was already on the police radar for a series of robberies, but had never been connected to a violent crime until now. The DNA evidence placed him at the scene, but investigators still needed to establish a motive and timeline. As police worked to build their case, a new lead emerged. A second neighbor came forward and revealed that she had heard shouting from Jane's house on the night of the murder. Though she hadn't thought much of it at the time, her statement aligned perfectly with Bird's repeated cries of "No, stop." This provided a crucial link between the bird's vocalizations and the timeline of the crime. Armed with the DNA evidence, eyewitness accounts, and the cockatoo's haunting words, prosecutors took the case to court. During the trial, Bird's behavior was presented as part of the narrative, though it was the DNA evidence that ultimately sealed Daniel Torres's fate. Prosecutors argued that Torres had broken into Jane's home intending to rob her, but panicked when she fought back, leading to her murder. In the end, Torres was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. While Bird's role in the trial was unconventional, his presence and vocalizations captured the attention of the public, turning him into an unlikely hero. The case remains a testament to the incredible intelligence of animals and their ability to aid in unexpected ways, even in the pursuit of justice. While Bird the cockatoo proved how a loyal companion can give voice to justice, sometimes even the smallest clues, like a single strand of hair, can expose the truth. This brings us to a groundbreaking case where a cat's DNA changed everything. Case 2, the cat whose hair led to a conviction. In the mid-1990s, a quiet Canadian community was shaken by the sudden disappearance of Shirley Duguay. Shirley was a devoted mother of 5, living on Prince Edward Island, and her absence immediately raised alarms. Her family knew she wouldn't simply vanish, leaving her children behind. Days turned into weeks, and the search for Shirley intensified. Local police scoured the island, following every lead, but the trail went cold until an unusual clue surfaced. It all began when investigators found a blood-stained leather jacket buried in a shallow grave near Shirley's abandoned car. At first glance, it seemed like a promising lead, but the jacket itself didn't provide direct evidence. That was until police noticed something peculiar. The jacket was covered in fine white hairs. They appeared to be from an animal, but no one could say for sure which kind or why they mattered. As investigators worked on the case, suspicion fell on one man, Douglas Beamish, Shirley's estranged partner. Douglas had a history of violence, and witnesses reported seeing him near her home on the day of her disappearance. However, there wasn't enough evidence to connect him to the crime, yet. That's when the investigation took a groundbreaking turn. The white hairs on the jacket were sent to a forensic lab, where scientists confirmed they belonged to a cat. This might have seemed like a minor detail, but it was critical because Shirley and her children owned a pet cat named Snowball. Snowball was a white-haired domestic shorthair, and his fur matched the fibers on the jacket almost perfectly. But here's where it gets fascinating. In the 1990s, animal DNA wasn't commonly used in criminal investigations. In fact, this case would mark one of the first times in history that feline DNA was analyzed as part of a murder trial. Scientists took a sample of Snowball's DNA and compared it to the hairs found on the jacket. The results were stunning, a perfect match. This proved that the jacket had been in close contact with Snowball, and by extension, Shirley. With this evidence, prosecutors argued that Douglas had worn the jacket while committing the crime and then tried to dispose of it. The connection between Snowball's hair and the jacket placed Douglas at the center of the investigation. Police uncovered additional evidence, including witness testimonies and further forensic analysis, tying Douglas to the crime scene. In court, Snowball's role became a pivotal part of the prosecution's argument. The use of animal DNA as evidence was groundbreaking and attracted significant media attention. Some questioned whether the science was reliable, but experts testified to its accuracy and credibility. The jury was convinced, and Douglas Beamish was convicted of second-degree murder. Snowball's contribution to solving the case wasn't just remarkable, it was historic. This was the first time animal DNA had been used in a criminal trial, setting a legal precedent for future cases. Snowball became a symbol of how even the smallest, most overlooked details can lead to justice. While Kat uncovered a chilling poisoning plot through forensic brilliance, our next case takes an even stranger turn. Here, a tiny, unassuming grasshopper, something most of us wouldn't think twice about, became the pivotal piece of evidence that cracked a brutal murder wide open. Case 3, the grasshopper that helped solve a murder. In 1985, a horrifying murder case in Waco, Texas, left investigators scrambling for answers. A young woman named Mary Lou Payton had been found brutally murdered near her home. The scene was chilling, no signs of a violent struggle, no witnesses, and very little evidence that could immediately point to a suspect. With few leads to go on, it seemed the case might go cold. But then, in a twist no one could have predicted, an unlikely piece of evidence, a grasshopper, would crack the case wide open. As forensic investigators combed through the scene for clues, they noticed an unusual detail on the victim's clothing, the mangled body of a grasshopper. At first glance, it didn't seem important. But upon closer inspection, they realized something peculiar. One of the insect's legs was missing. While this detail might have seemed insignificant, seasoned investigators understood that in the world of forensic science, no detail is too small. They carefully collected the grasshopper and sent it to the crime lab for further analysis. Meanwhile, investigators turned their attention to potential suspects. Among them was James Edward Jones, a man who had a history of violent behavior and had been spotted in the area around the time of the murder. Jones was brought in for questioning, but he denied any involvement, claiming he had no connection to the crime. However, as investigators examined his clothing, they made a surprising discovery. Attached to the cuff of his pants was a small, severed leg from what appeared to be an insect. Forensic entomologists were called in to examine the evidence. Their task was simple, yet groundbreaking. Determine whether the leg found on Jones's pants matched the grasshopper found on the victim's clothing. Using meticulous techniques, the entomologists compared the physical structure, size, and pattern of the leg to the insect. The results were shocking. It was a perfect match. The missing leg from the grasshopper found at the crime scene fit seamlessly onto the body of the insect found on Mary Lou's clothing. This discovery was a turning point in the investigation. The presence of the grasshopper leg on Jones's clothing placed him directly at the crime scene. While it might seem like a small piece of evidence, in the context of the case, it was monumental. It was highly unlikely that such a specific connection could occur by chance, and it directly contradicted Jones's alibi. But the grasshopper wasn't the only evidence tying Jones to the crime. Investigators also uncovered additional forensic details, including traces of soil on Jones's shoes that matched the composition of the ground near the murder site. Witnesses later came forward to testify that they had seen Jones loitering near Mary Lou's home on the night of the murder. Together with the forensic evidence, the grasshopper provided the final piece of the puzzle that sealed Jones's fate. During the trial, the prosecution used the grasshopper leg as one of the key pieces of evidence against Jones. Forensic experts testified about the painstaking process of reassembling the insect and demonstrating the match. The jury was captivated by the story, and the unusual nature of the evidence left a lasting impression. It wasn't just compelling, it was irrefutable. Jones was convicted of Mary Lou Payton's murder and sentenced to life in prison. The case became a landmark in forensic science, showcasing how even the most seemingly insignificant details, like a missing leg on an insect, can lead to justice. The use of entomological evidence was groundbreaking at the time, and paved the way for further advancements in forensic investigations involving insects and other elements of nature. The story of the grasshopper that helped solve a murder is more than just a tale of clever detective work. It's a testament to the meticulousness of forensic science and the importance of paying attention to the smallest details. It also serves as a reminder that in the pursuit of justice, no clue is too small, no detail too insignificant, and no ally, no matter how unlikely, is to be overlooked. This case remains an iconic example of how science and nature intersect in the most unexpected ways. Forensic entomologists, often working behind the scenes, play a crucial role in unraveling mysteries that might otherwise go unsolved. And in this case, a tiny grasshopper, an unassuming creature most people would ignore, became the key to unlocking the truth and ensuring that justice was served. Next, we uncover how a swarm of bees led investigators to a kidnapper and their captive. Case 4. The bees that led to a kidnapper. In 2012, in the rolling countryside of rural England, an unsettling disappearance sent shockwaves through a small farming community. A 35-year-old woman named Emily Stone vanished without a trace while taking her usual walk along the wooded paths near her home. When she didn't return by evening, her family contacted the local police, and a massive search effort began. Days turned into weeks, and while authorities scoured the area, it seemed as if Emily had disappeared into thin air. That is, until nature, specifically a swarm of bees, offered an extraordinary clue. The break in the case came when a local beekeeper, known as Mr. Carpenter, contacted the police with a bizarre observation. Carpenter had been tending to his hives near the woods when he noticed that one particular swarm of bees had abandoned their usual foraging patterns and clustered around an old shed deep in the forest. As a seasoned beekeeper, Carpenter knew bees are highly territorial and selective about their movements. This sudden shift in their behavior struck him as odd. Trusting his instincts, he decided to investigate. Approaching the shed, Carpenter noticed a foul smell and immediately realized something wasn't right. He alerted the police, who arrived and discovered a horrifying scene. Inside the shed, they found Emily Stone, alive but bound and gagged. She'd been held captive for over 3 weeks. Despite being weak and dehydrated, Emily was conscious enough to provide crucial information that would lead to the capture of her kidnapper. But here's where the bees' involvement takes an even more fascinating turn. Forensic investigators found traces of honeycomb fragments and stray beeswax on Emily's clothing and skin. This suggested that her kidnapper had been using products from nearby hives, likely the same ones Carpenter managed. Sure enough, analysis of the honeycomb fragments revealed traces of a rare pollen that only grew in that specific region. By cross-referencing Carpenter's hive locations with local residents who had recently purchased beekeeping supplies, police narrowed their list of suspects. Their investigation pointed to a man named Harold Fletcher, a reclusive farmer with a criminal record for minor offenses. Fletcher owned property near the woods where Emily had been walking on the day she disappeared. When authorities searched his home, they found damning evidence: rope matching the bindings used on Emily, honeycomb fragments that matched the samples from Carpenter's hives, and a journal detailing Fletcher's obsession with Emily. Emily's testimony filled in the blanks. She explained how Fletcher had abducted her at gunpoint, forcing her into his truck and driving her to the secluded shed. He had left her there, returning sporadically to bring water and food. She described how she had given up hope of being found, believing no one would think to search such a remote location. The bees, however, thought otherwise. The bees became an unlikely but critical part of the narrative, with their instinctual movements leading Carpenter to the shed and ultimately saving Emily's life. Fletcher was convicted of kidnapping and attempted murder and sentenced to life in prison. It's a testament to how even the smallest creatures, through their natural behaviors, can make a monumental difference. While the bee's instincts saved a life, our next case shows how even a household pet, unknowingly exposed to danger, can hold the answer to a meticulously planned crime. Case 5. The dog that helped solve a murder. In April 2023, the quiet town of Robinson, Texas, was rocked by the discovery of a gruesome crime. Firefighters responding to a brush fire in a remote area stumbled upon the burned remains of a body. Standing steadfast near the charred remains was a dog, his eyes filled with sadness, refusing to leave. The dog's presence added an air of mystery to the case, but no one realized at the time just how crucial this loyal canine would be in solving the crime. The victim was later identified as 26-year-old Mandy Rose Reynolds, a vibrant young woman known for her love of animals, especially her dog, Titan. Investigators noted the dog's unwavering loyalty as he stood guard despite the chaos of the scene. Titan, a brown Labrador mix, seemed to be the only witness to the heinous act. Animal control officers scanned Titan for a microchip, which provided the first critical lead: Mandy's identity. Identifying the victim was no easy feat. The fire had burned so intensely that traditional identification methods, such as fingerprints or visual recognition, were almost impossible. Titan's microchip became the linchpin in confirming Mandy's identity and starting the search for her killer. It was an emotional moment for investigators as they realized the significance of Titan's role. His loyalty to Mandy not only spoke volumes about their bond, but also became a symbol of hope in uncovering the truth. Investigators quickly turned their attention to Mandy's life. Friends and family were interviewed, and it became clear that Mandy had no known enemies. However, there was something suspicious. Mandy's home had been ransacked, and several of her belongings, including her car, were missing. This pointed toward a robbery gone wrong, but there was no definitive proof until Titan's discovery unlocked a series of crucial clues. Authorities issued a statewide alert for Mandy's missing car, a silver Honda Civic. Days later, the vehicle was spotted in Wichita, Kansas, nearly 400 miles away from the crime scene. Inside the car, police found a man who would become the prime suspect, Mandy's cousin, 32-year-old Derek Drenched. When approached, Derek attempted to flee but was apprehended after a short chase. Derek's arrest revealed a sinister story. Evidence found in his possession tied him directly to the crime. A handgun recovered from the vehicle matched the caliber of bullets found near Mandy's remains. Surveillance footage from a local hardware store showed Derek purchasing gasoline cans, gloves, and matches, items authorities believe were used to set the fire. But Derek's motive remained unclear until further investigation revealed a financial dispute between the two cousins. According to friends and family, Derek had been struggling with significant debt and had previously borrowed money from Mandy. When Mandy refused to lend him more, tensions escalated. The discovery of text messages between the two revealed a heated argument just days before Mandy's murder. Investigators pieced together the timeline. Derek had lured Mandy to the remote area under the guise of wanting to talk things over. Once there, he shot her, staged the fire to destroy evidence, and fled the state in her car. While investigators worked tirelessly to build the case, Titan's role was far from over. The dog became a symbol of Mandy's enduring presence in the investigation. Authorities noted that Titan's health had been affected by the ordeal. He was dehydrated and visibly traumatized from staying near Mandy's body for hours, possibly days. Rescuers and officers alike felt an emotional connection to Titan, recognizing his loyalty as a driving force in ensuring justice for Mandy. During the trial, Titan's role was highlighted as an extraordinary element in the case. Prosecutors argued that Derek had shown a callous disregard for human life and even greater cruelty in leaving Mandy's dog to fend for himself. Forensic evidence, including the handgun, gasoline cans, and Derek's DNA found on Mandy's car, painted a damning picture of guilt. The text messages and financial motive sealed the case. After a week-long trial, the jury deliberated for just 4 hours before delivering their verdict. Guilty on all counts, including first-degree murder, arson, and animal cruelty. Derek was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For Mandy's family, the verdict provided a sense of closure, but their grief remained palpable. They expressed gratitude for Titan's resilience and the role he played in helping to identify Mandy and set the investigation in motion. Titan, having made a full recovery, was adopted by Mandy's parents. He became a beloved member of their family and a living reminder of Mandy's life and the love she shared with her furry companion. This case is a powerful reminder of the unique bond between humans and animals. Titan's loyalty not only provided comfort in the darkest of circumstances, but also became a cornerstone in the pursuit of justice. It serves as a testament to the idea that even in the face of unspeakable tragedy, the love and dedication of an animal can shine through, guiding us toward the truth. Animals may not speak our language, but their actions, instincts, and even their very existence have solved mysteries that left humans baffled. These stories aren't just about crimes, they're about the extraordinary connections we share with the creatures around us. They remind us that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they have feathers, fur, or even wings. But here's the real question. If animals can uncover truths we never saw coming, what other hidden powers might they hold? Are we just scratching the surface of what they're capable of? As we marvel at these incredible cases, it's worth asking, are we truly paying attention to the remarkable world around us, or are we missing vital clues in plain sight? Comment below which story blew your mind the most and whether you believe animals might hold the key to solving future mysteries. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because you never know where the next unbelievable story will come from. We are Freak Files, channel that brings mystery and horror stories to life via documentary. And remember, sometimes most unexpected heroes can leave the biggest impact in uncovering the truth.